The morning sun cast long shadows through the lawyer's office windows as I sat there, watching my father hand over the deed to my childhood home to a woman he'd known for 6 months. Veronica. With her perfect blowout and designer suit that cost more than most people's rent, she looked exactly like what she was, a predator who'd found the perfect prey in a grieving widower. Emma doesn't need it, Dad said, not even looking at me as he signed the papers. She's independent, has her own apartment, good job. This way, Veronica and I can start fresh. I sat in the uncomfortable leather chair, my hands folded in my lap, the weight of my mother's absence pressing down on me like a physical thing. She'd been gone for 8 months. 8 months, and he was already giving away everything she'd loved to a woman who complained about the dated kitchen Mom had spent years perfecting. It's for the best, sweetie, Veronica added, her voice dripping with false sweetness. The 3-carat diamond on her finger, bigger than anything my father had ever given my mother, caught the light as she reached for the deed. Your father and I need our own space to build our life together. You understand? It wasn't a question. I understood perfectly. I understood that my father, Dr. Marcus Webb, respected cardiologist and the man who once cried at my kindergarten graduation, had been completely transformed by this woman. I understood that the house my mother had inherited from her parents, the house where she'd raised me, the house she'd died in, was now being handed over to someone who'd already redecorated it in her mind. Of course, I said quietly, I understand. The lawyer, Mr. Morrison, looked uncomfortable as he shuffled the papers. He'd been my mother's lawyer too, had drawn up her will. His eyes met mine briefly, something unreadable flickering there before he looked away. Well then, Dad said, standing abruptly. That's settled. Veronica and I have reservations at the club. The club. 6 months ago, he called it that pretentious waste of money. Now he was a member, complete with golf lessons and wine tastings. Veronica's influence was everywhere, remaking him into someone I barely recognized. As they gathered their things, Veronica paused beside my chair. Oh, Emma, we'll need you to come by this weekend to collect your mother's things. I'm having the house professionally staged, and all that clutter needs to go. Clutter. My mother's books, her art collection, the family photos covering every wall. Clutter. I'll be there, I managed. She patted my shoulder with manicured nails. You're taking this so well. I told Marcus you were mature enough to understand. Not like those horrible children you read about who make everything difficult when their parents find happiness again. Happiness. As if my father's vacant stare and the way he flinched whenever someone mentioned Mom was happiness. They left in a flurry of expensive perfume and awkward goodbye hugs. I sat in the lawyer's office for a moment longer, staring at the spot where the deed had been. 27 years of memories signed away in 10 minutes. Ms. Webb. Mr. Morrison's voice was gentle. Are you all right? Fine, I said, standing. Just processing. He hesitated. Then, your mother was a remarkable woman. She always thought ahead. Something in his tone made me pause. But before I could ask what he meant, his secretary knocked, reminding him of his next appointment. I drove home to my 1-bedroom apartment in a daze. The place was nice enough. Modern kitchen, good neighborhood. The kind of starter home my mom had been so proud to help me find. But it wasn't home. Home was the Victorian on Maple Street with the wraparound porch and the bedroom window that looked out onto Mom's garden. Veronica's garden now. That weekend, I arrived at the house with boxes and bubble wrap, my heart heavy. The front door, painted the soft blue my mother had chosen, was now a stark black. More sophisticated. I could hear Veronica saying. Inside was worse. The walls, once warm cream with family photos, were now bare and painted gray. The furniture was different, sleek, modern pieces that looked like they belonged in a magazine rather than a home. Mom's reading nook by the window was gone, replaced with some sculptural chair no one would ever actually sit in. Oh good, you're here, Veronica called from the kitchen. She was supervising a team of workers who were tearing out Mom's beloved farmhouse sink. Your father's at the club. I've put all your mother's things in the guest room. Please have them out by 5. The designer is coming for measurements. I climbed the stairs, each step a memory. Mom teaching me to tie my shoes on the landing, racing Dad to the top when I was 5. Helping Mom up these same stairs in her final weeks when the cancer had stolen her strength but not her smile. The guest room was chaos. Everything that had made this house my mother's was piled carelessly in boxes and bags. Her books thrown together with no care for their condition. Photo albums stacked haphazardly. Her jewelry box, the one Dad gave her for their 10th anniversary, tossed on top of a garbage bag full of clothes. I spent hours carefully packing, treating each item with the reverence Veronica hadn't shown. Mom's first edition Jane Austen's, the quilt her grandmother made, the shoebox full of every card I'd ever made her, each one saved and treasured. Find everything. Veronica appeared in the doorway, impatient. Almost done, I said, wrapping Mom's wedding china, the set she used every Sunday, the set that would never see this dining room again. Good. Oh, and Emma. She held out a manila envelope. These were in the safe. Old documents, probably trash, but I thought you should go through them. Your father didn't want to deal with it. I took the envelope, noting the way she said your father, like he was mine alone to deal with when it came to painful things. It wasn't until I was home, surrounded by boxes of my mother's life, that I opened the envelope. Insurance papers, old tax returns, the deed too. I stopped. There was a deed to the house. But it wasn't the one I'd seen Dad sign over. This one was older, dated 3 years ago, and it showed the house being transferred from my mother's name to mine. My hands shook as I read it again. The house had been put in my name 3 years ago. But that was impossible. Mom had never mentioned it. Neither had Dad. And the lawyer who'd looked so uncomfortable, who'd said Mom always thought ahead. I called Mr. Morrison's office, but it was Saturday. His answering service took a message. Then I did what Mom taught me. When in doubt, research. I went through every paper in that envelope, then started on the boxes of documents from the house. That's when I found it. A safety deposit box key taped inside Mom's diary, along with a sticky note in her handwriting. For Emma, when the time is right, you'll know. The bank was closed until Monday. I spent the weekend alternating between staring at that key and rereading the deed. How was it possible? Had Dad known? Had he deliberately signed over a house that wasn't his to give? Monday morning, I was at the bank when it opened. The safety deposit box was registered in my name, had been for 3 years. Inside were more documents, a letter, and a USB drive. I sat in the private viewing room and opened Mom's letter with trembling hands. Asterisk, my dearest Emma, asterisk. Asterisk, if you're reading this, then I'm gone and certain things have likely come to pass. Please know that everything I've done has been to protect you and protect what our family built together, asterisk. Asterisk, 3 years ago, I was diagnosed with stage 2 breast cancer. I didn't tell you or your father because I didn't want to worry you, and the prognosis was good. During that time, I met another patient, a young woman whose family had lost everything when her father remarried after her mother's death. It opened my eyes to possibilities I didn't want to consider, asterisk. Asterisk, I love your father, Emma, but I'm not blind to his weaknesses. He's a good man, but not always a strong one. He can be influenced, especially when he's grieving. So I took precautions, asterisk. Asterisk, the house has been in your name for 3 years. There's also a second mortgage in your name with me as guarantor. The payments have been automatically deducted from an account I set up. That account is now yours. The mortgage was never about needing money. It was about creating a legal claim that would supersede any other, asterisk. Asterisk, if your father has remarried quickly, if he's tried to give away our family home, know this. It was never his to give. The bank will be contacting whoever thinks they own the house about the mortgage. They'll have to deal with you, asterisk. Asterisk, the USB contains video statements from me, properly witnessed, explaining everything. Mr. Morrison has copies of all documents, asterisk. Asterisk, I know this seems calculating, but I've seen too many women's legacies erased by new wives who want to pretend the first family never existed. Our home is your heritage, your children's heritage. Don't let anyone take that from you, asterisk. Asterisk, remember, my darling girl, being kind doesn't mean being weak. Stand firm, asterisk. Asterisk, all my love, Mom, asterisk. I read the letter 3 times, tears streaming down my face. Even in death, she was protecting me. Even sick, she'd been thinking ahead, planning, ensuring that what mattered would survive. The USB contained exactly what she promised. Video statements, clearly dated, showing her of sound mind as she explained the property transfer, the mortgage, everything. She looked thin in the videos, tired, but her eyes were sharp and clear. I was still processing when my phone rang. Unknown number. Hello. Emma, this is Robert Chen from Pinnacle Bank. I'm calling regarding the property at 42 Maple Street. We've been notified of an ownership change, but there's a significant mortgage in your name on the property. We'll need to speak with you and the new owners about this situation. Of course, I said, my voice steadier than I felt. When would you like to meet? As soon as possible. The current residents were quite upset when we contacted them. They seem to have been unaware of the existing mortgage. I'll bet they were. I agreed to meet him that afternoon, then called Mr. Morrison. This time he answered personally. Emma, I've been expecting your call. You knew about the house, the mortgage, everything. I did. Your mother was very specific about when and how you should be informed. I must admit, I was relieved when you found the documents. The situation at the signing was uncomfortable. Does my father know? Did he know when he signed it over? A pause. I cannot say what your father knows. I can say that all proper searches should have revealed the mortgage. If they didn't do their due diligence, that's on them, I finished. Precisely. I met with the bank that afternoon. Robert Chen was professional but clearly enjoying the drama. The mortgage has a balance of $450,000, he explained. It's been paid faithfully, but the new owners would need to either assume the mortgage or pay it off to clear the title, since it's in your name. They can't do either without my agreement, I said. Correct, and frankly, given that the property was transferred to you 3 years ago, their claim to ownership is questionable at best. What are our next steps? I'll need to meet with all parties. The bank's position is clear. You are our mortgage holder, and according to our records, the property owner. Their deed appears to be invalid. That evening, my phone exploded. 17 missed calls from Dad. 23 from Veronica. I let them all go to voicemail until finally, a text came through. Emma, what have you done? The bank says the house has a mortgage in your name. Veronica is threatening to sue. Call me immediately. Dad. I texted back. I haven't done anything. Mom did. The house has been mine for 3 years. Your lawyer should have caught that. The phone rang instantly. Emma Marie Webb, you explain this right now. Dad's voice was angrier than I'd ever heard it. There's nothing to explain. Mom transferred the house to me 3 years ago. There's a mortgage in my name. You gave Veronica a deed to property you didn't own. That's impossible. The house was in the trust. No, Dad, you assumed it was. Did you ever actually check? Or did you just let Veronica handle everything? Silence. Then, this is your mother's doing. She had no right. She had every right. It was her family home. And she knew. I stopped, took a breath. She knew you need protecting from yourself. How dare you? Dad, I have videos. Mom explaining everything, including her concerns about you remarrying quickly and being influenced to give away my inheritance. Do you really want to discuss who had the right to do what? He hung up. The next morning, I met with Dad, Veronica, their lawyer, Mr. Chen from the bank, and Mr. Morrison at the bank's conference room. Veronica looked like she aged 10 years overnight. Dad wouldn't meet my eyes. Their lawyer, a shark in a suit who'd clearly been hired by Veronica, started aggressively. This is clearly fraud. A sick woman transferring property to keep it from her husband. My client's mother was of sound mind. Mr. Morrison interrupted smoothly. I have extensive documentation, including medical records and video testimony. The transfer was completely legal. And the mortgage, the shark demanded, has been paid faithfully for 3 years from accounts set up by Mrs. Webb. No fraud, no deception. Just a woman ensuring her daughter's inheritance remained intact. I pulled out my laptop. Would you like to see the videos? Mom was very thorough. This is ridiculous, Veronica exploded. Marcus, do something. But Dad was staring at the bank's documents, seeing the dates, the signatures, the careful planning. You knew, he said quietly, looking at me. At the lawyer's office, you knew. No, I said honestly. I found out that weekend, going through Mom's papers. The papers Veronica thought were trash. Veronica's face went red. This is entrapment. You set us up. I sat quietly while you took everything, I said. If that's entrapment, then what do you call manipulating a grieving widower into giving away his late wife's family home? How dare you? Enough, Dad said quietly. He looked exhausted older. For the first time since Mom died, he looked like he was actually feeling the loss. Emma, what do you want? I want my mother's house. The house she grew up in, the house she raised me in, The house she made sure would stay in our family. And the mortgage will continue to be paid from the account Mom set up. When it's paid off, the house will be fully mine, as she intended. Veronica turned on Dad. You're just going to let her do this? That house is worth over $1 million. It's ours. It was never ours, Dad said quietly. I see that now. Then I'll sue. You'll do nothing, Mr. Morrison said calmly, unless you'd like us to pursue charges for attempted fraud. You did, after all, accept a deed for property that wasn't the grantor's to give. A thorough title search would have revealed that. Veronica's lawyer whispered urgently in her ear. Her face cycled through several shades of red before settling on a furious purple. Fine, she spat. But I want every penny we put into renovations. You mean the renovations you did to a house you didn't own? I asked. I don't think so. Consider it a lesson in due diligence. She stormed out, her lawyer trailing behind. Dad started to follow, then stopped. Emma. Bo, Dad. Your wife needs you. He flinched at the emphasis. She's not. I mean she is, but, he trailed off, looking lost. Your mother really did this. She did. She knew you'd be vulnerable, knew someone might take advantage, so she protected what mattered. She always was smarter than me, he said softly. She loved you, I said. But she loved me too. And she knew that sometimes love means protecting people from their own worst impulses. He left without another word. A week later, I stood in my house, surveying the damage. Veronica's improvements had stripped away so much character, but bones remained. Mom's garden was overgrown but salvageable. The kitchen would need to be restored. The walls were painted. But it was mine. I found a contractor who specialized in historical restorations. I want it back the way it was, I told him, showing him photos from before. Every detail. It took 6 months. 6 months of Dad's awkward phone calls that I didn't answer. 6 months of hearing through family that Veronica had left him when she realized he was broke. He wasn't. He just wasn't as wealthy as she thought without Mom's family money. 6 months of rebuilding what had been carelessly destroyed. The day I moved back in, I found a package on the porch. No return address, but I recognized Dad's handwriting. Inside was Mom's jewelry box, the one Veronica had tossed aside, and a note. She would be proud of you. I'm sorry I let you down. Dad. I set the jewelry box on Mom's dresser, my dresser now, and opened it. Everything was there, including her wedding rings. Under the rings was a photo I'd never seen before. Mom and me in the garden, planting roses. On the back, in her handwriting, teaching Emma to grow strong roots. I stood in my mother's house, and finally let myself cry. Not from sadness, but from gratitude. Even in death, she'd been my protector, my champion, my guide. The doorbell rang. My best friend Sarah stood on the porch with a bottle of champagne and a huge smile, ready to celebrate. Yeah, I said, wiping my eyes. I think Mom would approve. To strong women, Sarah said, raising her glass once we poured the champagne. To mothers to think ahead, I countered. To knowing when to be kind and when to be strong. To Mom, I said quietly, and we drank. Outside, the sun set over the garden where new roses were beginning to bloom. The house settled around me, familiar and safe. Somewhere, I knew, Mom was smiling. The house was home again. And this time, no one could take it away.